You're listening to an Anazao Ministries podcast.
Hello, friends. Welcome to another episode of Systematic Geekology. It's another What's New episode. This particular episode, we're just going to talk about things that are new in pop culture and geek out on it. Nothing specific, but just kind of go around the horn and talk about what we're geeking out on that's new out there in pop culture and geek culture. And today, I have a good friend of mine, Brian Bennett, who we overlapped in seminary a little bit. We've done some geek culture stuff together and projects together, and I consider him one of the pioneers in this intersection of faith and philosophy and theology with geek culture and pop culture. He was one of the OGs out there with a podcast called Church of the Geek. We've done some things like TheoCon together and done conferences. We've done panels at Comic-Cons together. So, Brian, I am glad that you're here. Brian, where are you today? How are you feeling? What's up?
Thanks, Will. It's really great to be here. You're so kind with those words. I am the campus pastor in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I serve students at Pitt, Carnegie Mellon, Chatham, and Carlow universities. So Pittsburgh, right now we're going to hit 70 today. So, it's going to be a nice day. Dang. Just before we crash back down again into the cold. So, but yeah, it's good to be with you. We're on a little bit of a hiatus with Church of the Geek. We're retooling, I think, a bit of what we do, but there's still an extensive back catalog to explore.
Absolutely. And I was on there way back when we were talking about God Loves Geeks and what I was doing in my congregation. And it's had with that book club and book study and doing some of those things. That's really kind of the origin story of Systematic Geekology here, sharing that with Joshua and his podcast, and then said, hey, maybe we could do and branch off and do some of that work about religion and faith and theology intersecting with those things that we geek out on and the narratives that we're captivated by. So let's hop into the episode. All right, what's new? I'll start off. I'll go around the horn. One thing that I'm really into that dropped on Apple Plus is this documentary called Make or Break. It documents kind of behind the scenes of the World Surf League, which you've heard me talk about it before. It's like the NFL, the NBA, the NHL, MLB of pro surfing. And so you have this kind of a elite group of 30 to 40 men and women who are on the surf tour that go around to these great locations, some of the best waves of the world with the best surfers of the world, and they compete and see who's best by the end of the year and who wins the world title and all those kinds of things. And so this Make or Break goes into kind of behind the scenes and what makes a pro surfer tick and what they're up to and the struggle of how to remain on tour and what it takes to make a living being a pro surfer. And the second season just dropped. And I'll have to say the first episode documents 50-year-old Kelly Slater winning the Pipeline Masters. And so as another bald 50-year-old watching another bald 50-year-old win a surf contest, he is the GOAT. He's 11-time world champ. It kind of documents that contest for him there at the beginning of the season. And it was a lot of fun. I watched that live when it happened a year or so ago. But then to have behind the scenes and what makes him tick and learning more about him was really cool. So if you want to learn more about pro surfing and what it takes to be a pro surfer, I highly recommend Make or Break on Apple Plus. Yeah. Brian, how about you? What's new in your world? What you geeking out on in the new part of geek culture these days?
Sure. I just watched the other night the first episode of season 3 of Picard.
Yeah,
that was it's a gamble because I thought season 2 was terrible. It's probably my least favorite Star Trek thing out there, season 2 of Picard. But it picks up. It's sort of a return to the Next Generation folk. We're going to see a lot of them this season, and that first episode is enough to make me go, "Well, that was better than the entire second season." It was fantastic. I really liked it. My wife was like, I'm still reserving judgment. I'm like, okay, fair. Me too, but I'm much more optimistic about it. but she's a little bit choosier than I am. So
Mm-hmm.
I liked it. It's, we're going to see familiar folks. We're going to see it. It had season 2 had a terrible feel for me. It didn't really feel Star Trekky, and the ways that the writing did, they tried to, I think, cram too much in. And so they left out some connective tissue. And season 3, this episode starts off very good. It feels very much like Star Trek.
Nice. And we've bantered back and forth in other avenues that, like, I'm the Star Wars guy and Brian's the Star Trek guy, and but I've admired and honored what Star Trek has done in the sci-fi realm and what it's done in pop culture and all kinds of respect. I've shared before that, like, I was just a kid that grew up on the original Star Wars movies, and then whenever I watched reruns of Star Trek, I was like, where's the lightsabers? Where are the lasers? All this talking. But then later on in life, kind of like, oh, I see what they're doing. It's more philosophical. It's more Twilight Zone up in space. It kind of carved the way and paved the way for things like Star Wars to actually happen. So I like Brian's take when it comes to Star Trek. And you kind of grew up on the Star Trek reruns, right? Was that kind of
right?
Your first
I watched. My mother was really concerned. Like, oh dear, what is this doing to him? Little did she know, it was turning me into a massive nerd.
Yeah.
Because every night after dinner, the Star Trek was run reruns in syndication. I watched it religiously. I loved it. These stories in space and out there, and no lightsabers, but there were phasers, and there was the Vulcan death grip. Spock's neck pinch that dropped folks. And I realized I love Star Wars, but Star Trek is my jam. It's the more cerebral. So
absolutely,
you space Cro-Magnons you Star Wars fans can enjoy it. I really I feel like the vision, everything else is so dark or can be really dark, but Star Trek has always upheld this wonderful vision of what humanity can be. And it's not without its problems, for sure, but it's way more optimistic.
Yeah, and I think we've talked about, like, sci-fi holding up that mirror, or that speculative fiction of what things could be in the future, and what we hang our hat on, or what we hope things will look like, or help us re-examine what we're doing now that will affect the future. And Star Wars does that too, but it's a little bit more. I don't know. They're in the same sandbox, of course, of science fiction, but in terms of, like, where they're going with the story and what they hope to do, and they both deal with a lot of fans and nostalgia, where they got to keep people happy in a sense of that fandom of, we want what we love, but we also want them to go in a new direction and do something new. And when you kind of don't work out that balance, then fans get upset. And at least we see that in Star Wars. We'll talk more about that when it comes to another thing we're geeking out on in the Star Wars universe. But how do you feel like the Star Trek as of late, regardless of, like, the newer movies that J.J. Abrams have done, balancing that kind of nostalgia with doing something new and pulling it into the future for newer fans?
So I have really enjoyed Discovery. That has been it's a good piece. I like the cast. I like the characters. It's not always great in its execution of the story, but I have really enjoyed it. But Strange New Worlds has deepened the connection to the original series, and I love it. So that has been really good, which is why, as much as I disliked Picard season 2, and now Picard season 3 comes out, having come off of the high of Strange New Worlds, that first season, because Captain Pike is awesome, and it's pretty enjoyable. So that's why I'm feeling pretty optimistic about this, because I feel like they hit it right with Strange New Worlds, and hopefully they made the adjustments that they needed to do from season 2 of Picard.
Yeah,
which and let me say again, bad.
I've heard things in the zeitgeist of pop culture about, like, people are very excited about season 1 and Picard coming back and all that, and then season 2 people were like, what are we doing? And then when season 3 was kind of like, oh wow, they're going to do another season. And then I saw some online chatter about, like, that was a really good episode. I'm hopeful, so that's why I definitely want to bring it up. We'll keep you in the loop and keep you here to kind of keep us in the news about your thoughts on that In terms of my bandwidth of things that I can consume and be into, Star Trek's always kind of hung out there for me, and I definitely go to the movies and see some of that. But as far as binging, one day I'll go back and watch all of those. And then same with Doctor Who. Like I love Doctor Who. I loved the old Doctor Who when I was a kid, and but haven't got into really the new episodes. And but maybe one day I will. I definitely respect that its place in the pantheon of geek culture and what it does. And the stories that it tells. Yeah, a comic that has come out that I've gravitated to that I kind of like and want to see where it goes. I'm a big Marvel head, but from Boom Studios, there's a comic called Mosley. And it kind of goes in kind of a futuristic dealing with AI. That's the topic today that we're all wrestling with. AI, and it has some superhero tropes, transhumanism, humans merging with machines, and what does that look like? And it really is a neat comic. There's two issues out, and I want to really kind of see where this goes. I think it does not only is kind of an adventure and it has comic book tropes in it, but the questions that it lifts up about AI and our emergence with our bodies with technology. Brian, I don't know if you've seen that one or reading that.
I've seen it I saw it on the shelves. That's good to know.
It's worth a pickup. Rob Guillory, I probably mispronounced the name. I think he did Farmhand, and which is a popular one. I haven't read that one. And then Sam Loftby is another person who's on that book as the creative team. But it's worth a pickup to see. We'll see what happens when it finishes the first story arc, whether it's better read in like a trade or to pick up the single issues. But it's a new book that grabbed my attention, and especially with all the talk about AI and emergence with technology and all that stuff lately of these days. It's another avenue to kind of explore what that would look like, or cautionary tale when it comes to that. All right, I'm going to circle around to Last of Us. I know Brian hasn't been watching that show, but it's out there. There's 6 episodes in on HBO Max. I absolutely adore it. It is. I was a big. I love the apocalyptic genre. I love the zombie genre. There's a different take on that. I know we've talked about it being a video game, a different take on the monster, but it continued to be just a very character-driven show following Joel and Ellie and them trying to make it in this world, and the new reality 20 years after kind of a virus outbreak. And so there's monsters, there's zombie-like mushroom fungus like people you have to avoid. But again, this is another one of those shows in apocalyptic genres that reveal that most of the time the monster of the week isn't the most dangerous thing. It's what humans do in that environment that really you need to be more wary of. What humans are capable of is really the monster that we need to be fearful of.
Yeah, so this is really fascinating. I was listening to my friend Mav's podcast. They were talking about this Vox podcast. Mm-hmm. They were talking about ages of comics, right? The Gold Age, the Silver Age, the Bronze Age, and then moving after the Bronze Age, it gets a little funky. But one of the ages that they called, and sort of what their current age is, not modern or contemporary, but they called it transmedia, insofar as comics now extend, or these superheroes at least extend across media.
Nice.
And the notion of adaptations has really gotten to me, because so many things are being adapted for other media, right? So this was a video game,
right?
And I have always said video games are one way that we can immerse ourselves in stories, and I think that's a really cool thing. Like I can be Batman in Arkham City, right? I love that. So also listen to the Adventure Zone, and they are their original story arc, the balance arc, is being adapted into a graphic novel. You're
right.
The 11th Hour arc at this point. So we got Tolkien with Rings of Power. And I am intrigued by the notion of adaptations, particularly for the Christian life. In a sense, all of our lives become adaptations of the Jesus story, right? How does that begin to look? And so the reality is you can have a good adaptation of something that has to make choices that doesn't include everything. And we have this. So it's been rattling around in my head. So I think it's been interesting that you guys pick up on this. So I haven't watched it, and I probably will at some point. But I'm fascinated by the way we are finding new ways to tell the same story over and over again. And I think there's something for us in the life of faith that matters.
Yeah, after, was it episode 3 or 4? Very moving kind of love story, survival story, episode 3. And as I was watching, I was like, "Good Lord, this was a video game? What are we doing?" And I never played it, but TJ, one of our hosts, has played it and played the second part and loved it. And Trip Fuller, a friend of mine on the show, was like, "Yeah, my kid played this video game, and like, what is going on? Like, this is a TV show," and the way they've adapted it to TV. And sometimes you have a hit, and sometimes it misses when it comes to like taking something from a book or a novel, make it to a movie, or a video game into a movie, or vice versa. But man, what they've done with this show with some HBO money is pretty daggone fantastic. So I can't recommend enough for those who like that genre.
I want to encourage folk in that same vein, though, to check out Other Minds and Hands. It's done by the Tolkien professor, and he and another, Corey Olsen and Maggie Park, do this, where they talk about adaptations across that. And they've just started talking about Lord of the Rings, which is hilarious, but they finally got to a point where they could do. But they talked about Dune, they talked about a number of other things, and especially the Rings of Power. Because they talk about, and he is someone who has very clear connection to like the books of Lord of the Rings, but the way he talks about adaptations and the way they engage it is, they can understand people have connections and all that sort of stuff, but they encourage folk to talk and listen or watch these with different eyes and think about, but what is happening in that story as it is. It's not going to be there's no way there's ever going to be a faithful reproduction of one story from one medium to the other. Sure. So it's really interesting. You got to make choices. So I just want to lift that up for that exact reason. I think that Other Minds and Hands is a really wonderful way to engage folks.
Is that an article or a documentary or a book? Other Minds and Hands.
It's a podcast. It's a podcast. Nice. I think they're streaming it. It's probably on YouTube, but it's also on the Tolkien. What's the podcast? Tolkien Professor.
Okay.
Yeah, you can check that out, and it's very rich to think about that, especially if you love Lord of the Rings, but also if like Dune. That was a good conversation that they had about the most recent Villeneuve adaptation. So Olsen talked about, like, we'll come across something and he doesn't necessarily like, and it drives him back to the source material, back into the story that he knows and loves, and it really forces him to re-engage the story and then go, oh, you can do that, right? Or so it just keeps helping you re-engage the source material when you see that. And it's, yeah, I think it's such a good way to engage adaptations. Love it.
Good recommendation, Brian. Yeah, Brian, like, probably not a short answer, but quick take. Did you like Rings of Power? Did you like that?
I did like it. It was a pretty good story. I enjoyed it. But I also like the 1984 David Lynch Dune movie.
Right.
On its own. It's not Dune. I love Dune the book. I can set the book aside and watch that movie and go, David Lynch is wild, man. So
nice. Well, we had Star Trek corner. We moved into some comics and some post-apocalyptic. Let's move into Star Wars corner. A couple big things that are out there today. We got the Bad Batch has been the newest content from Star Wars animation and Disney Plus. And then as you guys, the listeners, listen to this, one episode or a few episodes, I don't know how many episodes they're going to drop, of Mando season 3 has dropped. As recording this, we don't know what it's going to be like, but we're excited about it. Maybe you've watched it so far. I know I have. It's not out yet, but it will be. I don't know, time loop. But Bad Batch, the latest season, Star Wars animation. I'm enjoying it. Brian, I know you've been watching it. What is your take on this? Of course, it has Star Wars fans, fighting on Twitter again, but that's kind of what Star Wars fans do. But what's your take on this season so far?
Yeah, Star Wars fans are going to Star Wars.
Yep.
I've really enjoyed. So I will say the beginning was a little slow. I didn't know how it was going to go, or if it was just going to be just sort of these missions, because they set it up to be one failed mission after another.
Yeah.
The introduction of a new character, and then then they broke it loose. Where they had the Emperor just completely play everybody, and not to give too much away if folks haven't watched it yet, but dang, that broke it loose, and I was like, that's good.
Yeah,
that's really good.
Yeah, I kind of like this. People complain about the adventure of the week and not too much canon or storyline or main narrative moving the Star Wars universe forward and this big continuity story. And I'm kind of like, that's kind of what cartoons do. They do the adventure of the week, and then they get a little deeper and they go along. So not every single episode needs to be like the next big thing that's going to break the internet for me personally. And so when people talk about filler episodes, most of my life, most of my days are filler episodes. I am going through the motions. I'm doing the same routine. And then there are some events that happen. Not every big event can happen every single day. There are filler episodes in my life. Bad Batch is the same. But yeah, that filling in the gap of what happened with the clones leading to the emergence of the Imperial Stormtrooper. We want to know that story. And this is where it's happening, and naturally so, in this series, and that's what they're doing. Even though not every episode goes super deep into that, we got a couple episodes where it did, and then it'll be there. It'll be there.
I don't think Filoni does a lot of filler. I think almost all the stuff he does is very intentional in the story, and we don't know it until later.
Yeah. No, and I think Bad Batch, if you're going to talk about these clones that were, the ethical dilemma of creating them for war. And then you're like, now they're emerging as having their own personalities and their own people and souls. Are not just like tools of war. And then even within the show, they're toying around not only with their own personalities and their gifts. I like the team book. I like the team up. I like X-Men. I like Avengers. I like Justice League. That's who they are. But also you're going into like neurodiversity and maybe somebody that's on the autism spectrum and dealing with that kind of stuff, wrestling with what is family, what is home, where to, nature versus nurture. I mean, all those things are coming in, and yeah, they're trying to reach a large kind of age group base from children all the way up to like 50-year-olds who grew up with the original trilogy. So there's a lot there that they have to balance. And I think they're doing a pretty good job. Not every episode is going to be your favorite. Not every comic book is going to be the best comic book I've ever read. But they're part of the story and the people that you love and you want to follow and see what unfolds. Be patient with it. There's going to be a lot of episodes. Yeah, there's some deep stuff there. There's fun stuff. There's racing. There's you got to get this treasure, and what is treasure, and paying off debts. I mean, there's kind of some Star Wars tropes and stuff, but there's still some really depth there. And I don't know where Omega is going to find herself at the end of the series or in the larger Star Wars universe. I personally, man, if I would like geek out hard if an older Omega shows up in like the Ahsoka series at some point down the road, that she's standing next to Captain Rex or another Bad Batcher who like, and they, it's a big universe. It's like, where's she been? Where was she in other movies? It's like, well, she could have been doing the Ahsoka thing and get connected. So I don't know.
There's a pretty cool theory on a YouTube channel I was watching. Guy has a theory. I'm not going to bring it up here. But it would link Omega to the much larger cinematic universe.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm there for it. I
don't know. It's a compelling little argument, though.
And that's where we get in trouble with Star Wars fans. Like, we have our theories and the mystery. We want to fill in the gaps, and if it doesn't happen that exact way, then we get upset. And that kind of is what happened with Last Jedi and other places. I'm like, oh, this would be cool. This would be cool. I can't wait for this to happen. Oh man, wouldn't that be happen? I write the story in my head, and it doesn't happen that way. And I'm like, dang it, why didn't they do my story?
I learned my lesson after WandaVision. Right, I wasn't going to believe. I'm done believing all of the internet rumors. But if this one plays out, it's pretty darn cool.
Okay.
So,
all right. Well, leading into like Star Wars stuff, Mando season 3. Here we go. It's hard. The movies aren't necessarily the flagship anymore. It's this particular series is the flagship Star Wars show that is kind of leading Star Wars into the future. Where season 3. It's emerging, it's happening. Are you guys excited? What are you hoping to see? We don't have to have big theories, but like, are we going to see a de-aged Luke again? Or are we going to find out Grogu's, origin of how he escaped the Jedi Temple or not? Is that a part of it? What do we think? What do we think's going to happen here in season 3?
I want to see more development of Grogu as an individual, right? I want to see. I mean, we know that Grogu makes the choice to return to Mando, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I want to see Grogu develop beyond just the cute little egg sucking comic relief moment, right?
Yeah.
I want there to be more. I want there to be something meaty in his story. I know it's Mandalorian, but I want there to be a development of that clan of Mando and Grogu.
Yeah, we've been down the road of like, all right, he needs to protect a child from the outside threat, and then he had his cute moments of batting his eyes and eating something, and we know he's force sensitive and he's grown. So it was weird to me that they used Book of Boba Fett to bring Mando back and Grogu together. So for those of you who don't know and didn't watch Book of Boba Fett, there's some episodes in there you're going to need to watch Mando season 2.5. But I was fine. I was happy with those. Those are my favorite episodes of Book of Boba Fett. And now
those are everybody's favorite episodes of Boba Fett.
Yeah. So. And so now is season 3. So I think for me too, I think I want some more of his backstory and why he is the way he is and what's going on with him, along with some of the larger Mandalorian, political espionage and larger world. And we'll, of course, talk more about Mando in future episodes when those episodes drop. We might even do a live watch of some episodes out there. So keep a lookout for that as well. That's what's new. Oh, yeah, Brian, go for it.
I got 2 comics I want to lift up.
Okay.
We didn't. We got off on other stuff, but one actually you mentioned Boom Studios and this for Mosley. This one is Briar.
Okay.
There's 3 issues out right now. Christopher Cantwell, German Garcia, and Matthias Lopez. Great sort of reimagining of the Sleeping Beauty tale. Very adventurous. It's really excellent. The art is very cool. I love the colors. It's apocalyptic elements going on, and so love it very much. I really enjoyed that. And the other one, I bring this up. It was 5 issues last year, and it just came out in a collected edition. And so I want to tell folks, if you see it and you like horror and faith, this is from AWA, which is I had never heard of before this, but that's Artists, Writers, and Artisans Incorporated. But AWA, a title called Sacrament. It is a horror-based comic around faith. Let me for those who were I want to warn everybody about content within Sacrament. There are a few explicit pictures as a priest wrestles with his vows, etc. Briar, there's language, but Sacrament is Peter Milligan and Marcelo Frusin. The great thing about this, if you can find this collected issue, is that it is $10.
Okay.
And here's the problem: if you see it, you got to grab it, because I told the folks at my comic shop, I said, "Oh, I see this is out. Oh my gosh, it's $10. I have the floppies. Trust me, just leave it on the shelf in case, and order me another one, because if I want other people to get it, if they can." They went and they looked, and it's already out of print. So if you see it, and if horror, sci-fi, faith stuff is interesting, Sacrament is your thing. There's exorcism and religious wrestling. A very the priest is it's a forbidden religion. Christianity is forbidden because it's all atheist. It's very dystopian and dark and 1,000 years in the future. So there, just FYI.
Yeah, and imagine that, 2 Lutheran pastors on a podcast talking about comics, and one of the titles is Sacrament. Of course it is. And I'm going to go hunt that down.
I like it a lot.
I follow AWA on Twitter and Instagram, and kind of follow some of their books and things, but I haven't read a whole lot about it or a lot of content, but that is one that I will try and hunt down. Cool. Well, thanks, friends. Thanks for listening. This whole show has been kind of like recommendations and what we're geeking out on. So, yeah, you know where to find us. You can find us on social media and on our website. We are trying to get more traffic on our YouTube channel. So hop over there, subscribe, like, share. We'll have some more content on some live streams in the future, and then some watch parties. And then let us know what you're geeking out on and what's new for you. And if there's something that we're missing or an episode that you want to hear us talk more about, then reach out to us. You can send emails to Joshua, because he can't wait to hear from you and the emails. Just flood his email with like hundreds of emails of stuff that we should do. He'll go through it. He'll answer every single one of them. He'll answer every single one of them with a personal message. And so, thanks, friends. Thank you for listening. And remember, the geek in me honors the geek in you.
This was an Anazao Ministries podcast. If you enjoyed this show and would like to learn more about our network, be sure to check out the Anazao Ministries Podcast Network.